Hello once again, ladies and gentlemen. Let us continue with the second part of this video. So in the first part, we talked about the parallelogram, starting with the area and using the area to find the area and one of the side measurements to find the missing side measurement. And so you will find that in the assignment, numbers 1 through 6 have to do with parallelograms. But beginning with question 7, we are talking now about a triangle. All right, so assuming that you've already reviewed the previous video, let's begin and apply the same logic to a triangle. So you notice this triangle, and if you do have to pause this video to copy down some of these notes, that's fine. But beginning with this triangle, notice that we are given some information beginning with the area. So we know the area of the triangle. We're given the base, but we do not know the height. And remember, the height is always perpendicular to the base. Hence why it has a little square here showing that this makes a right angle. The height will always make a right angle with the base. And yeah, ladies and gentlemen, we need to remember that area will, the formula for area will always change depending on the shape. So for a parallelogram, it was area is equals to base times height. So here we're going to begin the same way by writing down the formula. However, the area formula is different for a triangle than it is for a parallelogram. For a triangle, we have area is equal to base times height divided by 2. Base times height divided by 2. Now you might also see it written like this: area is equal to 1/2 base times height. But ladies and gentlemen, these two are the exact same thing. So I recommend that you use this form of the formula. So area is equal to base times height divided by 2. Similarly to what we did before, and this is not one of the problems in our assignment. We'll get to those in a second, but have this in your notes just to have that as an example. Let's go and fill in some of this information. So do we know the area? Do we know the area? And yes, we do. The area is going to be 90 square inches. Now we are also given the base. Instead of a B, I'm going to put a 15 here in parentheses because we are multiplying. 15 times the height. Notice that we're not given the height, so I'm going to leave that variable, but we are dividing by 2. Area for a triangle is base times height. And then what do? We divide by 2. All right, and I'll explain this other one in a little bit. So now that I have it written down, notice that I haven't really done any math yet. I haven't done any calculations yet. All of what I've done is that I've set it up into this form, into the formula form. 90, which is my area, is equal to the base 15 times h, the height, divided by 2. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to simplify this side with the variable a little bit more. I can't multiply 15 in h, but I can divide 15 by 2. So 15 divided by 2. So if I work that out, 15 divided into 2. 2 goes into 15, 7 times 2 times 7 is 14, remainder 1. You have a decimal, bring down the 0, and 2 goes into 10, 5 times, that would be 7.5 h. 7.5 is left over, and then we just bring down the h. So that's where I got the 7.5 right here. It's just 15 divided by 2 gave me that 7.5. So again, 90 is equal to 15h divided by 2. But I can do 15 divided by 2, which is 7.5, and that's where that 7.5 came from. So now, ladies and gentlemen, we have one of these traditional equations, right? Where our goal is always to isolate the variable. We want to get the h all by itself. So how do I get rid of this multiplication by 7.5? Well, the opposite of multiplying is to divide. So I'm going to divide 7.5 by 7.5. However, whatever I do to one side, I must do to the other, just as I am doing down over here. And that's going to leave me with h being isolated here on the right side. And that will equal whatever 90 divided by 7.5 is. Now, ladies and gentlemen, some of you will have to review how to divide with decimals on the divisor. So remember, if there's a decimal in the dividend inside, it's not a huge deal. But if we have a decimal on the outside, we do not like that. So I'm going to take this decimal and make this into a whole number. So now it's actually 75. And I can do that as long as I take the decimal here in the 90 and move it over the same number of times in the same direction. So 90 divided by 7.5 is the same thing as 900 divided by 75. 75 goes into 90 one time. 90 minus 75 is 15. Bring down the 0. And 75 goes into 150. exactly twice. 75 times 2 is 150. Ladies and gentlemen, my answer is 12. My height is 12. So that's one way of doing it. Now, there's another way that we could do this very same problem. Notice that up to this point, it's the exact same thing. Our area is 90, our base is 15, our height is what we're looking for, and we need to divide by 2. This is a little bit more complicated. Hopefully it doesn't confuse you guys, but what I can do is, this is a two-step equation, okay? So remember, all I want is that 15h, or really just the h by itself, but let's get rid of this 2. The opposite of dividing by 2 is to multiply by 2. So by doing that, these cancel out, but whatever I do to one side, I must do to the other side. So I'm going to multiply this other side by 2. So 90 times 2, that gives me 180. And we're left with 180 is equal to 15h. Notice how the 2 is now gone because I multiplied both sides by 2. Now it's just a simple equation. The opposite of multiplying by 15 is to divide by 15. So I'm going to do 180 divided by 15. And when I divide 180 by 15, again, I get the same answer, the answer of 12. Either way works, ladies and gentlemen. I recommend doing this first one. I feel like it's a little bit more intuitive, where the only difference between what we were doing before is just that we first divide by 2. Let's look at some examples. Let's go into number 7. Notice that we're dealing with a triangle. So let's begin with the formula. So the formula for the area of a triangle is base times height divided by 2. And let's go ahead and fill it in. Notice that the area is given to us, that is 15. And that's going to equal the base, which is 5, times the height, which I don't know what the height is. So 5 times the height divided by 2. All right, notice no math yet. All I did is I just filled everything in. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so we want the h to be isolated. So let me simplify this by working everything else around. So 5 divided by 2, that's going to give me 2.5. If you didn't know that, you could just work it out. So now we have 2.5h is equal to 15. And let's just go ahead and isolate the variable. The opposite of multiplying by 2.5 is to divide by 2.5. So divide both sides by 2.5. And that leaves me with h is equal to whatever 15 divided by 2.5 is. Notice that I have a decimal on the outside. I don't like that, so I'm going to move that to make this a 25. So I must move this to make this into a 150. I moved it the same direction to the right once. All right, 25 goes into 150 exactly 6 times. 25 times 6 is 150. So ladies and gentlemen, my height is 6 inches. How can I check to see that this is correct? Well, let's put this back into the equation. Base times height, 6 times 5 is 30, divided by 2 is 15, and that is the same area that I have over here. It totally works out. Let's just go ahead and do one more together. And I encourage you to rewind it if you need to see that again. But again, let us start with the area formula. The area for a triangle, we always begin with the formula, is base times height divided by 2. Let's go ahead and fill it in. My area is 225. My base is equal to 30. My height is unknown, so I'm just going to leave the variable there. But regardless, I'm going to have to divide everything by 2. Okay. All right, let's moving on. 30 divided by 2 is 15, so I'm left with 15h on the right side, and that is equal to 225. Now we divide both sides by 15 to isolate the variable, leaving me with h. Whatever you do to one side, you do to the other, so we do 225 divided by 15, and then we just divide. 15 goes into 22 one time. Remainder 7, bring down the 5. And 15 goes into 75 5 times, which is exactly 75. So my height is 15. How can I check it? Do 15 times 30 and see if that gives you 225. If it does, it's correct. If it does not, then it is not correct. But yeah, that's pretty much it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you found this video helpful. I encourage you to go back and watch it again if there was any confusion. And yeah, with that in mind, I will see you next time.